Hey guys, it's Shaman and
Yolanda.
from Harper Therapy. We are the co-founders of Harper Therapy.
Yeah.
And today we want to talk a little bit about what collective trauma is. So
Yeah.
You're the expert. What's collective trauma?
Well, trauma is what we do at Harper Therapy. So I know that we've been using these words collective trauma lately. And it's been, in some of the stories, the reporting that we have all been consuming lately. Right. So it's like, what is this thing called collective trauma? Well, collective trauma is what it sounds like. It's a traumatic event that a community experiences together, where we're all collectively feeling like we have little control. It triggers that stress response that we've talked about. Some different examples of a collective trauma can be things like a natural disaster.
Sure.
So here in Florida, we've got a lot of experience with hurricanes, those kinds of things, right? If we're kind of like yearning for the days of hurricanes at this point. But,
right.
Hurricanes can be experienced as collective trauma. Global pandemics, definitely a broader range of collective trauma.
It might fit in that category?
A little bit. I would say that, yes. Global pandemics fit into the category of collective trauma. Yes. And, it can also, so those are some kind of like big T traumas, right? The bigger things that we think of when we think of trauma. But trauma happens along a spectrum, and some of the smaller traumas can be, our healthcare workers who are working so hard to save lives and are experiencing people's death and having to work in situations and circumstances where maybe they don't have the gear that they need or don't have the leadership that is helping them.
Or like they're watching each other get sick.
Right. Massive layoffs and furloughs, throughout work organizations, that can be experienced as a collective trauma. A lot of us are experiencing those types of situations.
Sure.
And along that spectrum of big T, little t trauma, just the big impacts of our daily lives. So our lives look totally different today than they did just a matter of a few weeks ago. So those can be experienced as traumatic events.
Right. And people, they react or they respond to that really across the very broad spectrum of responses as well. Like, some people have their lives minimally impacted,
Yeah, some people are navigating through this and not a lot looks, that life doesn't look as different. Maybe they're working home from there.
Right. And maybe other people, like you just said, they get very minimally impacted. And some people it's devastating. They can't get around it. They can't get through it. They can't.
Yeah.
They just don't see the solution there.
Right.
While other people just look at it and they're like, oh, that's not really a big deal.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been on a lot of, we've all been on Zoom calls and meetings and stuff. And you hear those responses across the spectrum. One person is like, well, I'm just home a little bit more now and I have some extra time to do some projects. And, on the other end, some people are saying my business is closed and, so...
Right. I mean, yeah, it's how we experience it kind of makes or breaks the whole thing for us too, right? Like it kind of defines the way we walk through it. And as people experience it differently, sometimes we don't even understand why other people experience it differently around us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it just impacts us different, We can experience a similar event and have a different response.
That's what I was trying to get to. We can all see the same event happening and the way we feel it and experience it is vastly different.
Yeah. The nuances of it is.
Right.
Yeah. So how do we navigate through this collective trauma and stay healthy? Is I think the big question that a lot of us are asking. So there's a lot that goes into that, but the core components are nutrition, movement, and sleep. And if we can take a look at like trying to have healthy nutrition, moving our bodies, some of the things that we've been talking about all along, sleep for a lot of us has been impacted greatly. And definitely if you're working shift work, that's a huge impact on sleep. But a lot of times if you can take a look at that, like a 3-legged stool and take some action towards the nutrition and the movement, that can help with the sleep.
So wait, you're saying I can't sit on the couch with a bag of potato chips through this whole event?
Well, I mean, it will impact you differently. You can definitely do that.
I might gain 50 or 60 pounds.
It'll just leave a different. And also kind of know if you're at a higher risk for experiencing trauma. And that means if you are working in one of these industries that we talked about, if you're a healthcare worker, if you're working in the grocery store and having to interact with people who aren't at their best selves, that's traumatic. If you have been on the receiving end of a layoff or a furlough, if you've had someone that you care about get sick, those put you at a higher risk. If you've had previous trauma,
that plays a lot, doesn't it?
You're at higher risk for this impacting you at a greater depth. So keep that in mind, and also know when to get professional help. Know when to reach out to a trauma therapist. That, like some of the non-negotiables, if you're having nightmares or flashbacks, if you are isolating to the point where, the people around you are like, what's going on? If you are drinking or drugging to excess, right? And a lot of times, one of the biggest indicators is an impact to relationships. So if the people around you are saying, hey, something's off. Hey, I think you might need help. Hey, this is not going well. Pay attention to that. Yeah. So that's our tip for today. We've been trying to share little tidbits of helpful information throughout this whole COVID experience. If this resonates with you, or if you're thinking of someone, if someone is coming to mind that this would benefit, then please share that with them so that we can, once we can wrap words around
and
things.
Check in on them,
right? Once we put words around things, it helps us to navigate through it more.
Right.
So thank you for watching, guys. Stay healthy and let's take good care of each other.
That's right. Thanks a lot, guys.